The following episode of Crusade for Myth Drannor is adapted from the Raiders of Galath's Roost by Skip Williams, published in Dungeon Magazine number 87. The sound of fighting and hoofbeats still ringing through the hallways of the citadel, the surviving Zintaran spellcaster drops his weapon. Túrendil and Massul make poor cases for cooperation to their opponent. Despite their unconvincing threats, their foe seems likely to deal with them, given his compromised position. More concerned with the threat of the still active combatants, Massul retreats down the hall to back up the ranger on the horse. The mage, Cuspa, reveals the number of prisoners and guards below. Satisfied with his cooperation, the party's priest directs Cuspa to his chambers. Somewhat confused by Jade relieving him of some of his spells, the apprentice slumps against the wall until the catfolk lets him past. The two turn their attention to the continuing combat, lest the situation threaten to spiral out of control again. Massul wades through the smoke to block off the pursuing soldiers from Rilyanasse. He downs a soldier with a blow of his hammer, while Ryl fells another with a shot from her bow, urging her horse through to the other side of the smoky passageway. The last of the soldiers defeated, our heroes regroup. The party tends to their wounded before addressing the gnome hiding behind the armory's lowered security gate. Massul calls out asking who he is and why he's working with the Zintaran, and Jebelek, the gnome, answers. The smith prefaces his answer with a request that they ply their violence on someone other than him, my smithing skills specifically. Túrendil offers to leave the gnome be, provided he keep himself locked in the safety of his smithy. Massul questions whether they might bind the gnome before making their way further into the depths of the fortress, but ultimately agrees with Túrendil's assessment that muscling past the armory's portcullis and fighting the smith would be more trouble than it was worth. Go see if you can't carve a smile on Sudilis' humorless face, the gnome calls after the four as they descend the stairs to the lower level, his disdain for his employers evident in his jibe. Down the stairs is a cold room, the only light coming from a single torch on the northern wall. The beating of drums rings from a stairway to the north, a passageway to the north and another to the south exit the room, and large double doors bar passage to the east. Investigating the eastern way first, Massul finds a large, wide passage with another set of iron-bound double doors at its end, and another passage branching to the south. Túrendil investigates the first of the doors. Determining it's safe, the commander's keys unlock it, revealing a door opening into an archway set into a masonry wall. The priest concludes that this must relate to the portals the Zintaran use. The rest of the doors are constructed similarly, save for a room blocked off by a locked grate and cage-like door. It contains a large pile of charcoal and 7 chests. Cautious of traps or monsters within the facility's treasury, Rilyanasse makes liberal application of Barrowmist's best 10-foot pole, poking one of the chests. Massul does likewise with the haft of his hammer. Still cautious, the dwarf attempts to open one of the chests with the spear tip, but lacks the dexterity to do so. Túrendil strides in, simply opening the first container, finding it full of nondescript brown powder. Cautious about wasting more time than necessary, the four return to the hub room. Our heroes investigate the 3 doors down the western passageway, discovering unlocked chambers. They find well-furnished quarters containing a double bed, brazier, fine chair, and a mural of a spread hand bearing 2 eyes in its center upon the back wall. The northernmost chamber also is equipped with a small altar to Zvim, which the priest of Corella knocks to the ground with a thud. Opting to investigate the last door here instead of continuing down toward the beating of drums, Massul and Túrendil ready their weapons as they see men and women in cells. The prison is furnished sparsely. A table and chairs, various racks, tongs, and instruments of torture fill out the floor space of the room. Within the first cell are 5 townsfolk, among them a tow-headed boy. The priest assures them help is here, and this is met with praise to the Hexad for their safety. He asks after the Citadel's leader and is answered by the boy that he is a horrible man, and that he had taken others days ago as sacrifices to his monsters. By fortune or fate, the garrison captain's keys work upon the cells here, and our heroes begin unlocking and releasing the Dalesfolk from their confines, as Massul checks for skulking guards lest an ambush be upon the four. The next cell contains an elf and a drow manacled to opposite walls. The elven prisoner, Inialos Oakwood, offers his praise to the Seldarine and inquires as to whether his allies have sent the priest to his rescue. Túrendil confirms this, inquiring after the drow in the cell with Inialos, even as she, Gwynneth Moondark, coldly addresses him with the obvious question of her freedom. The intelligent emblem Túrendil had acquired from the floating castle in the party's first adventure, often silent and contemplative, whispers harshly into his mind.
Psst! Kill that drow! She's definitely evil!
He dismisses the urging of the enchanted item. Unaware of this mental conversation, Gwynneth offers to perform a single service for her would-be savior in exchange for her freedom. Túrendil makes a show of freeing Inialos first, receiving the unfortunate news of the fate of the other missing elf, before offering the drow simple terms, that she would help slay what Zhentarim remain here and then return to the Underdark. She accepts his terms without any counter-argument, no small delight in her tone at the promise of vengeance in exchange for freedom. Rill sees to the wounded among the townsfolk, while Massul inquires as to their new allies' preferred weapons. Among all this, a meek voice calls from a forgotten cell in the southwest corner of the dungeon. Within is a shirtless man manacled to the wall with golden hair, fine features, and an impressive build.
Oh, thank goodness. I thought you were going to forget me.
The priest of Corellon inquires as to his identity, and is answered immediately that the prisoner is named Kurudava Chloris, a servant of Torm. Satisfied with this and eager for more allies, the elf releases the newly freed prisoner and returns to the armory above to demand a supply of gear for their expedition further into the citadel. Expecting another fierce confrontation, the four fortify themselves with magic and alchemy. Beyond the stairs is an oddly shaped chamber with a vaulted ceiling, a single flame above illuminating the room. On the floor is blood-stained grating, a carnal stench rising from it. 4 alcoves of various widths and depths are beyond the grating, 3 levers in the central alcove, drums in the others. The walls are festooned with murals of large black hands with staring eyes in their centers. The Zhentarim beyond the grates ready their weapons. The party spreads through the room. Massul advances first. Standing on the grates, he sees the desecrated, shambling corpses of horrific humanoids. The dwarf thinks better of standing on the grates, positioning himself against the wall to swing his hammer into the Zhent's front line. The released and freshly armed prisoners join the fray as well, loosing arrows and threats alike. A summoned hellhound joins the fray as the nearest sergeant counterattacks the onslaught. Rilyanasse, her crosshairs on the half-orc, removes the threat with a well-placed arrow. A blinding flash of colors from the spell Jade had stolen earlier renders several of the guards and one of the acolytes unconscious. Beseeching his god for aid, Sudillis envelops friend and foe alike in a prayer spell. Kurudava Chloris, the devotee of Torm thought to be a paladin, screams in rage, shedding his skin and revealing his true form, a golden-scaled dragon. The party presses the Zhentarim position, suffering a blow from a well-placed spear point. The catfolk ducks into the alcove to smack the unconscious acolyte with her mace, acquiring some of her mystical prowess. Sudillis pulls one of the levers behind him, the grates in the floor flying open and Massul barely jumping away. Eager for living flesh, several undead mill about the depths of the hole 20 feet down. Eager to help, the dragon blasts the depths of the pit with a gout of fire from his maw. As the combat continues, with close misses and deflected blows on both sides, Túrendil finally manages to finish the summoned hellhound. The priest of Zvim snuffs the life of one of his underlings to empower himself, and the Bane Dead crawl forth from their carnal pit, the allied dragon attempting to repel the monsters with tooth and claw. In the heat of combat, one of the undead monsters turns on the fallen acolyte, seeing easy prey. The effects of the color spray wear off just in time, however, and with an utterance in Abyssal, the priest calls upon her dark patron, waves of negative energy rendering Jade unconscious and stripping Túrendil's temporary hit points. The priest steps up to challenge the undead and the priest behind it. The Bane Dead turns on him, hatred burning in its unliving eyes. Across the room, the party's dragon ally holds the high priest and his last sergeant at bay, while Rilyanasse rains arrows at the combatants and the other former prisoners battle still more Zhentarim. Massul succumbs to a fear spell, retreating up the stairs, and Túrendil ends the last Bane Dead. With Jade stabilized, Túrendil returns to the fray. Thus concludes this episode, but the crusade for Myth Drannor is far from over. Join us next time as we reach the thrilling conclusion of the Raiders of Galath's Roost. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you for the rest of the adventure.